Coming up on Tech News today, we meet the new mayor of Yahoo. Get it? Also, Office heads into the clouds. And did Wikipedia just run out of admins? All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Tuesday, July 17th, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by Squarespace.com, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website or blog. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to Squarespace.com and use offer code TNT7. And they now offer free domain registration with annual plan subscriptions. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And here is the show where we'll keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world, put them in context for you. We start with the top 10 stories of the day in the news feeds. If you haven't heard already, Google's Marissa Mayer is no longer Google's. The former search product head and VP has taken a job at Yahoo as CEO. Yahoo contacted Mayer Thursday about the job, and on Monday afternoon, Mayer called Google to resign. She starts in her new role today and steps right into the fire as Yahoo reports their Q2 earnings, which are expected to disappoint. Mayer has indicated she will not appear on the earnings call, though.
Things are getting touchy in the office these days. On Monday, Steve Ballmer and Kirk Koensbauer, VP of Microsoft's Office division, showed off Office 2013, and it's fully touch-ready.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Did you? Yeah, it took you a minute.
Touchy.
Huh? Yeah, well, it's sometimes
Good.
so. Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, all tappable, swipeable, and pinch and zoomable. Plus, Skype and Yammer are now both built in.
Valve says Steam is coming to Linux officially. Not only that, but Left 4 Dead 2 and the Source game engine are headed to Linux as well. Unfortunately, there is no official release date. However, Valve said the goal is to get Steam running on Ubuntu 12.04. That won't be the only distro Valve supports, but the first.
Samsung announced it's buying semiconductor company CSR's handset connectivity and location development operations for $310 million. In addition, Samsung will take a 4.9% stake in CSR for an additional $34.4 million. In case you're wondering, Samsung also picks up 21 patents in the deal.
Microsoft isn't out of the antitrust woods just yet in the European Union. It was accused of failing to give European customers a choice of web browsers following the terms of a 2009 settlement. The EU claims it's received complaints that Microsoft misled authorities over its browser ballot screen, which came to Windows users back in February 2010. The EU's antitrust chief says Microsoft may not have given all customers a screen where a choice of browser could be selected.
If being buggy was a crime, Microsoft would have been in jail a long time ago.
Sounds like EU is very touchy as well. The Wall Street Journal reports that Apple will use a new type of screen for the next iPhone that uses in-cell technology, which integrates touch sensors into the LCD instead of having a separate touchscreen layer. That would shave off an astonishing 0.5 millimeter from the screen. You know, Apple loves thinner. The Journal says that Sharp, LG, and Japan Display are making the panels.
How much will you pay for FaceTime calls? 9to5Mac discovered an interesting dialogue pop-up in iOS 6 beta when they attempted to place a FaceTime call over AT&T's 3G network. Up until now, FaceTime has only worked over Wi-Fi. The new message instructed the user to enable FaceTime over cellular by contacting AT&T. The company will only say that it will share more information with customers as it becomes available. Charge me for 3G? Hello, Skype.
The annual American Customer Satisfaction Index is out. So, would you like to venture a guess as to which social site is the most satisfying? If you guessed Facebook, you are dead wrong, because Facebook came in dead last, behind LinkedIn, behind Twitter, even behind Pinterest. But the big question is, who came in first? That would be Google+. It's the first time that Google Social Network has even been included in the index. Nowhere to go but down from here.
Yay, ghosties. The $35 Raspberry Pi mini computer was so popular that at launch in February, orders were limited to one per customer. Good news, modders and resellers. Production is ramped up to 4,000 units a day, and the limitation on Model B has been lifted, so you can order as many as you want. Shipping is estimated to still take until September for current orders.
Viacom just had a change of heart. The Daily Show and the Colbert Report are back on their own sites. What caused the return? Maybe the company watched the newest episode of The Daily Show. That's where Jon Stewart mocked both DirecTV and Viacom and pleaded with Viacom to put the show back on the web before people discover other forms of entertainment, like books.
Oh, yeah. Books. I have one of those. All right. This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by Squarespace.com. As I mentioned at the top of the show, it's fast, it's easy, it's the way to create a high-quality website or blog. There's lots of ways to blog out there, and there's lots of ways to make your blog look really good. But if you want the fastest and easiest way to do it, you want to check out Squarespace. Easy-to-use UI for creating and managing a website. I was just using it yesterday. You can schedule posts in it. We recorded our Sword and Laser audio episode a week ahead because Veronica's going to be gone on her birthday next week. And we made up the whole thing really fast, the whole post, scheduled it to post for next week. You're golden. And I mean, of course, a lot of blogging systems do that. But the nice thing about Squarespace is it's easy to do this stuff, and it's easy to create your blog so that it looks great. You can tweak the HTML and CSS if you want, but you don't need to make a really good-looking blog. Plus, when you sign up right now for Squarespace, if you get the year-long package, they'll give you a free domain name. It's not tied to your account. You own the domain name. They just give it to you for free, and it makes it really easy to pick a domain name and have it point right to your new Squarespace blog. So try it out for free. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to pay anything to just give it a whirl. Go to squarespace.com. They won't even ask for a credit card. Sign up for a free account. Try it out. Start building your website. If you decide to purchase it, use offer code TNT7 and get 10% off your first purchase on new accounts. And don't forget about free domain registration. If you buy the annual plan, you not only get 10% off the annual rate, but you also get that free domain name. That's squarespace.com, offer code TNT7. And we thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Also want to thank Paul Spain for coming all the way from New Zealand to be on the show today. Paul's from the New Zealand Tech Podcast. You came just for the show, right?
Absolutely. That's the only reason I'm in the US. Why else would somebody come to America?
No, it's fantastic. Thanks for journeying all the way over here to Petaluma and hanging out with us today. What is bringing you to the country?
I've been at Microsoft's Worldwide Partner Conference in Toronto and a few days in New York, reconnecting with a few people, and then this week here in and around San Francisco, the Bay Area, and of course today, Petaluma.
Yep. So what time do you think it is right now?
I have no idea.
It's tomorrow.
Oh, good.
It is actually. We're behind.
It's the past for him right now. Well, thanks for joining us. We got a lot of good stuff to talk about. Let's start with Marissa Mayer getting tapped as CEO of Yahoo. She resigned from Google Monday afternoon by telephone. Kind of a quick turnaround there, no 2 weeks notice, and starting at Yahoo like that.
At this level, it's probably the way things work, right? Because if you want...
Always, but yeah, maybe.
If Yahoo wants to control the message, which they really did this time, I mean, there were no whispers of this going on at all. You give
Sad
2 weeks
news for Tom Hanks' new animation, which came out today, too. Nobody's talking about that. But yeah, I mean, they really wanted to have it for the earnings call just to distract people, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Mayer was VP of Local Maps and Location after years of heading up the search business. She was employee 20 at Google, the first female engineer at Google. And she said, according to the New York Times article on this, that she hopes to leverage email, finance, and sports, hopes to do more with video and mobile. Kara Swisher reports that Daniel Loeb, he's the guy that did the hostile takeover of Yahoo, was the brainchild of this. He tried to get Jason Kilar from Hulu first, but Kilar said he wasn't interested. So he went after Marissa Mayer. Liz Gaines reports that Mayer's role at Google's not going to be filled. Her reports are all going to report into Jeff Huber, which was Marissa's boss. And a lot of people think maybe Marissa was looking for another position because she didn't get Jeff Huber's job because she had to report to him.
Well, Daniel Loeb was all about media. He thought that's one of the reasons why Jason Kilar was rumored for a while to be the CEO of Yahoo, and then Kilar said publicly, I don't want that job. So the thing is, I'm really curious, either Marissa Mayer is a genius or the craziest person on earth for taking this job. This is a job people did not want, publicly have said, other than Ross Levinson, they're like, well, I don't know if I can right that ship. That's pretty out there. And the thing is, her strategy, I mean, she knows Google's strategy pretty well. So it's really interesting to see what used to be a search leader, taking from the world search leader, a top executive, installing them at the top. I think that Marissa Mayer is going to have a huge impact in the fact that she'll be able to pull a lot of talent over, because it was like, well, who's your head guy? Ross Levinson? Okay, well, I kind of know him. We can get good contacts. But if you pull in a top person from Google, you can probably pull in a lot more talent from anywhere.
Well, she's also been at Google a really long time. There have been whispers that she's been marginalized the last few years. Let's just say, for the purposes of argument, that she did feel that way, that she knew that she was never going to be running Google. There were things that she wanted to make decisions on that she wasn't going to be able to do. This is a perfect move for her. And I think somebody I can't remember exactly who said it on Twitter last night, but said, listen, Yahoo is kind of a sinking ship. So if it doesn't work out, it's not like Marissa Mayer is to blame. And if it does, she's a hero of epic proportions. She kind of wins either way.
A little bit of a no-lose situation. That's interesting. By the way, Ross Levinson rumored not to be hanging around since I think he was expecting to get the job.
Probably a bit bitter.
So he'll be gone. But is Marissa Mayer? I mean, let's point out too that, by the way, a hell of a week for her. She announced on Twitter yesterday she's pregnant.
Due in October, and apparently the board didn't have a problem with that. She disclosed that before she was given the position.
She's taken on the CEO role and taking on a brand new member of the family. Do we think that, first of all, she has changed the perception of Yahoo enough to give it a chance to turn this around? Paul, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think she'll draw a lot of talent, and from the perspective of where she is, she's been with Google a long time. This is going to be a great challenge for her, and yeah, I think if she doesn't stir things up, then we've got to be really worried about, even more worried about the future of Yahoo. So I think she can have an impact in a whole lot of directions, and I think there'll be probably quite a big shake-up with this new leadership.
Do we see Yahoo and Google partnering up, or is it going to be a bad blood situation where Google's not going to want to talk to her?
I wouldn't see a Yahoo-Google partnership of any kind. I think what Yahoo's going to do with Marissa Mayer is that they're going to probably leverage the things they have going with Facebook and Microsoft to build a better, stronger alliance against Google. Because the thing is, you can't out-Google, right? You have to do something else. So if they can leverage all the other partnerships they have, things that Google just doesn't have access to, that's going to make Yahoo actually different enough that people go, oh, I will go to Yahoo because it's a totally different site.
But can you out-Google if the person in charge is directly responsible for building some of the products that make Google so powerful?
I don't think it's possible to do it. I think that's why they'll go a different way entirely.
Can't happen twice?
Well, the other thing about Marissa Mayer is everyone keeps saying product in regards to her. So we're not talking media anymore, which is what we were talking in the past, that Yahoo would be a media company. Now they're going to be a product company, which does sort of imply they're at least going to play closer to the arena that Google's in.
I guess I'm just curious. I'm just hoping that Marissa Mayer brings some kind of defined vision for Yahoo, because I still don't know what they do. I mean, that tagline, what is it? Premier Digital Media Company. What does that mean?
Doesn't mean a whole lot,
right, so
really.
Please, whatever you do, just explain what Yahoo does, and let's go ahead with that.
Yeah, focus is what's needed, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think she's got a lot of really good will right now. Because she's
very well liked.
She's
in the
liked
tech
by the
community.
media. She's liked by investors. She's a bit of a Silicon Valley darling, and I think everyone's excited because no one wants Yahoo to fail. They don't want to see this like long time brand fall into disrepair. But no one was confident that anyone could do anything. How long do you think she has, Sarah, to kind of prove that she's taking it, to do something that makes people go, yes, that's what we were waiting for?
Well, the whole pregnancy thing complicates my answer a little bit, and I don't want to get too much into whether or not I think women should, what they're going to put first as far as career or family goes. But I do feel like this is a very unique scenario. She's, I would assume, going to take at least a small amount of time off come baby time, so that's later this year in the fall. And she's so different than what we've seen at Yahoo in the past that I think she's got a good year or so before, if things aren't going well, the hammer drops. That would be my guess.
That the sharks will turn against her.
Yeah.
I think she's up to the challenge. I think she is a brilliant pick, whether Daniel Loeb or somebody else is behind it. A smart move because she is capable. She is talented, and she's someone that has single-handedly changed the perception of Yahoo overnight. Everyone suddenly looks at Yahoo as something that might actually become something cool. And she's going to have to execute on it.
Right.
Now, that's all. That's all. Not a big deal.
Yeah.
You can do it, Marissa. The other big news yesterday at noon, we got new details on Microsoft Office 2013. We told you about that in the news fuse yesterday, but we've had a day now to play around with it. Iyaz, you've been hammering away on it. What do you
Yes, I
think?
have. Okay.
It's very cloudy.
It's okay. So we have Office 2013 customer preview out right now. Free download. You can do that. it installs a little exe, and then you have to go and wait for Microsoft to connect to the cloud. This was one of the issues I had when I was using this. It constantly wanted me to connect, and I was having networking issues, and it's like, well, you can't use Word right now because you can't X out of this window. So until I got my networking issue fixed, I was kind of out of it for a little bit. But I fixed that.
That is a preview, so hopefully that's something they fix.
It was once a restart solved that whole problem.
Okay.
So
have you tried turning it off and turning it on?
I did try it, and that worked. I actually have Office on this laptop, and you can see, I mean, it's a very clean, stark look. And you can see one of my favorite things is that they hid the ribbon, or you can hide the ribbon if you want to. There's an option. I'm doing this on the second screen, so I can't really see where that little option is, but you can always bring the ribbon back. There's a little smiley face on the right side if you're listening to this. It's so you can give feedback to Microsoft. It's not that will always be there. You get to choose a theme.
That's for the preview, you mean? Yeah,
for the preview, correct. There's some really cool things. I mean, with PowerPoint, they have some new themes. They're widescreen. It's very, very clean. It's a very stark look. It obviously has the really flattened look of Metro. At times, I find the ribbon to be a bit distracting because the icons aren't necessarily all the same size.
You could hide the ribbon before, but it's just really easy to do it now.
Right now, it's a one-click option. Excel, they've done a lot of cool things with. They've added a lot of intelligence on this. Now, in this particular example, there's an email list on the left side, and it has like a first.last name at email address, right? Now, if you start writing...
Are those really email?
I don't believe so. If you start writing, because Microsoft also included a whole bunch of examples.
Demos, okay.
Right, so you can learn how these things work now. It will intelligently figure out what you're doing. So if the first person's name is Nancy, a second person's name is Andrew, Excel will figure out the rest of the column for you. So it's like, oh, it can see what you're doing. And I'm like, wow, that's really kind of neat. On top of that, polished, really polished. There's a lot of animations in here. So when you're scrolling, and obviously this is probably more for the tablet, when you go from like one cell to the next, the animation is incredibly smooth. Let's see if I could do that. It looks kind of, this is an extended
desktop. We're not
desktop.
doing it justice on this, on this output. But
on my laptop, it looked phenomenal. It just looked like they worked very hard to make this. There was something in the Microsoft post saying that they wanted people to have the over-the-shoulder envy. That if you were seeing that, you'd go, what do you have? And when I was playing with these different pieces of software, these different applications, I really liked that. SkyDrive integration, fantastic.
That's kind of the big thing, right? Because you don't have to buy the boxed version and install it on your desktop. You can still do that, but you can also buy it through the cloud.
Right. You can download it. There's also subscription plans. There's a whole set of different variations to the way Office 2013 works. But I mean, with SkyDrive integration, the idea was, okay, I made a file on this laptop. I was able to access it on my other computer without having to do anything other than log in. And you could edit it on the web because Microsoft has those powerful tools as well. So I mean, they're really nailing it. And I'm saying with the animations as well. For the tablet, it's going to look really smooth. And the usage, it's what you expect. It's just more powerful, a little simpler in its look.
Did you have a chance to take a look at any of it yet, Paul?
Yeah, I was traveling, and so I had a Wi-Fi connection for a brief time shortly after it went online, and I was able to download the first part, and then I lost connection for a period of time. And it seemed to actually handle it quite well, despite warnings saying, don't restart your computer, don't disconnect off the internet. I did both of those.
And it still worked.
And it handled it pretty flawlessly.
To you, Microsoft.
I mean, it seems like that they've really focused on that cloud integration. I've tried it out with SharePoint, with Office 365. And once you connect that login to Office, that works really, really nicely. What I didn't get a chance to do was to really test the touch side of it, and I think that's one of Microsoft's issues at the moment with media and people looking and talking about this. Is very few people have a system that they can actually touch it and get a real handle on how that's going to work on the Surface and on other touch devices.
But the whole tablet part of this is very interesting to me because tablets are where I cannot really use Google Docs. I can do a lot of reading, but I can't do a lot of editing. It's a huge pain in the butt to really make any changes beyond simple opening of links here and there. So I think if Microsoft can become a standout in the tablet space, that really gives me an incentive to use Office.
I think this shows a further strategy change by Microsoft. I don't want to overstate this, but it's a smart move for them to say we are also a cloud service organization. We know we can't live on selling Windows forever, especially in a quote-unquote post-PC world. So we want to be the company that gives you the best productivity software no matter what device you're using.
And I think that's an interesting point about the no matter what device you're using, because with the licensing they've talked about, and a user will be able to put it on 5 machines, but also if you go and sit down at somebody else's machine and you log on, you'll be able to stream down a copy of Office to that machine, use it temporarily, it'll disappear after you go. And I think that's been one of the big things, obviously, with Google Docs, is the fact that you can use it anywhere. Microsoft are now offering something similar. We don't know how that's going to work on the Mac, and they haven't talked about the Mac story, but I think that's quite a game changer.
Yeah, Office 365 was always a good competitor for Google Docs, but this definitely gives it something that Google can't match yet.
I think the online component also keeps the application somewhat fresh too, because you can access a whole bunch of templates. I was just showing that in the video feature, where I was just picking a different template and was downloading it live. I mean, there's a lot of things that keep this pretty interesting. Also, by the way, Microsoft did announce that it's Windows 7 and higher. So if you have below that, you have XP, you're not getting Office 2013. So they want you to move very fast.
Yeah, and that's not that unusual for them. Also, Skype integrated into Microsoft Office, and the Skype guys were telling me that Microsoft has been saying, we want to integrate Skype everywhere we can. So I'm not sure how I'm going to use that, but I thought that was interesting as well.
Outlook has some new features. I haven't been able to play with this if there's Skype in there, but they did something as simple as conversation threading, and that's really nice. I mean, it's a simple thing, but it's really a nice upgrade.
Let's move on to AT&T wanting to take a little chunk out of your FaceTime.
Yeah, speaking of using Skype, 9to5Mac had... They were doing a little work in iOS 6. They had restored their iPhone, which is apparently what you need to do in order to get a dialog box from AT&T when you try to use FaceTime over 3G, over cellular.
That's new in iOS 6.
Yes.
Right.
You've never had the ability to do that before. This was something that was Wi-Fi only, FaceTime, which we had talked about on the show, and I always felt it's probably why nobody really uses FaceTime, because it's not that convenient. You got to think of if you're on Wi-Fi or not, that sort of thing. So the idea of being able to have it whenever I want to call up Paul is very, very attractive, although it will use a lot of data. These are voice calls, of course. So the idea that AT&T is saying, well, hold on a second, if you want to be able to do that, we'll sort of treat this like the whole hotspot issue, where you can do this, but you're going to have to pay a little bit more a month. We're going to have to give you a different kind of a contract. This, of course, has a lot of people up in arms about the whole thing. I guess my first response is we don't know for sure that this is going to be the case, because, again, this is a beta issue, and there were some comments on that 9to5Mac story saying, well, I haven't restored my settings yet, but I'm not getting that dialogue, so I don't know if this is really the case or not. The fact that we've seen it leads me to believe this is going to happen for AT&T, and probably for the other carriers as well. Carriers want money. It's not that AT&T is more evil than the next carrier. They just might be first.
It's not because of that.
It's not because of that. That's for sure. But it does really, I don't know. It makes the whole you can have a FaceTime call over cellular a lot less attractive to me, to anybody, and it really just puts Apple in a strange position, because they've got these features that are cool in theory, but in execution are just going to cost you money. So what good are they really?
I mean, that just sounds like the hotspot thing. I mean, there's a cool feature of the device. You should be able to use it for free, but AT&T says no. A lot of the companies say no when it comes to that, unless you jailbreak and do a whole bunch of stuff on your own. But the thing is, I'm really curious about whether that dialog box means what people think it means. I mean, if you look at FaceTime, you click call, you're using a lot more data, and you have a cap on pretty much every single. I mean, a lot of people don't have that unlimited data anymore, so maybe it's just a notifier saying, "Hey, look, if you use this, you're going to be eating some of your cap." Mm-hmm. Because for AT&T to single out FaceTime over Skype or any other video calling feature seems a little strange, even though it could be a money grab for them. Because I mean, they did it with text messages and all other little things that seem a little nickel and diming. But I think it's odd that FaceTime would be singled out over something like Skype or whatever other video chat there is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Skype is basically the same thing. It's going to use roughly the same amount of data, And if you have limited data, then eventually you're going to hit a cap if you use a lot of it. And that's sort of like, okay, I'm a responsible person, or maybe I'm irresponsible, and then I'm going to have to pay more at the end of the month, or I'm going to have a diminished experience. But I don't have to pay more at the outset just to have the privilege of being able to use FaceTime.
I like that you're an optimist, Iyaz, but I think you're probably wrong. It's saying you have to call AT&T or go online to activate the feature. If it was just a warning about using your cap, it would just say, this will apply to your cap, buyer beware. The fact that you have to do that, and the fact that Apple on their website says, according with the FaceTime feature coming in iOS 6, carrier charges may apply, means that if AT&T can do it, they will do it.
Yeah,
carrier charges are going to apply. Now, that doesn't mean that every carrier will, because, for instance, tethering. Tethering is not always something you have to pay extra for on carriers. What is it like in New Zealand?
Yeah, so I think this is interesting. It highlights to me two things. One, the challenge that carriers have with revenue as we move away from traditional paying for minutes. Right, that's going to disappear. It all moves to IP. So for the carriers to survive and be profitable, they need these sorts of things to happen, but there's virtually nobody doing it. So I think this is a strategic move on Apple's part to actually gain back a little bit more credibility with the carriers. Certainly when we look at New Zealand and a lot of other countries around the world, turning on tethering, there's no carrier involvement in that. And so here in the US, that's an extra revenue stream that AT&T and others utilize as the people move to more IP-based traffic.
So we just look at your carriers as sensible and ours as crazy money grubbers.
They're all crazy money grubbers.
All right, let's move on to Valve. We mentioned they've launched a Linux blog. The purpose of the Linux blog is to announce that Steam, the distribution client, will be coming to Linux, Source Engine, Left 4 Dead 2, among other titles, all coming to Ubuntu 12.04. Launch date? Ha! It's Valve. You don't get a launch date. You've met Valve, right? Yeah, they don't do launch dates. They do say in the near future, we will be setting up an internal beta focusing on the auto-update experience and compatibility testing. So at least they said that much. And this comes along with EA. Ars Technica reports EA recently launched several HTML5-based games in the Ubuntu Software Center. So game companies starting to pay serious attention to Linux. We've known about the Valve effort for a while, but now they're officially making it, putting out the blog saying, yeah, we're on board. We want your help. We want your feedback. Here's the key question. How much will this affect acceptance of Linux by consumers? Is it just something to throw to the existing users out there? Or is this the kind of thing, as it did for me, that will nudge you into considering an Ubuntu laptop?
I think whether it nudges gamers or not, or users, is not necessarily the question. Is whether they're going to nudge NVIDIA to have drivers support for this kind of thing. Because when you want a game, you want to make sure you have the best graphics card. And if it doesn't work on your distribution of Linux, this becomes a problem. So if it gets the companies like NVIDIA and AMD into putting driver support for Linux, then I think people will seriously consider using Linux as an option. Because if the only reason you're running Windows is because you want a game, that no longer becomes an option. But if Windows is the only thing that supports your graphics card, well, I mean, you don't want to have a diminished experience.
And graphics cards are supported under Linux, but you bring up a good point, which is driver support generally lags and is not always awesome, which is why I love Zareason, the Linux vendor that says we certify that all of the pieces in the computers that we build have driver support.
Do you think this brings any fuel to the fire that Valve was working on its own Steam box? And it would be way cheaper if they had their own version of Linux and they're like, hey, look, we know it works with Ubuntu. We put it on our machine when you could just get it directly. And they would have graphics card support because they're working with everybody.
Yeah, I think it makes sense that this is more than just a play for Linux users. I think there must be some hardware or at least a plan to enable future Linux consoles.
They say that one of the reasons they did it is they were using Linux servers to provide the back-end support for Steam, and so they'd done some development, and it just was a natural outgrowth of that project. But they're not going to come out and say, "Oh, we're making a Steam box, and so we did it for that too." And I think you guys are right. I think it probably is. Google Plus, as we mentioned in the news fuse, the most satisfying social network. Is that what this survey says?
Well, they give a score of 1 to 100, and Google scored a 78, and Facebook scored a 61. And so the question is why? Why exactly was Facebook disliked so much more than Google Plus.
Because they have more people to dislike it.
Possibly. Apparently, the Facebook timeline feature ticked off a lot of people. The intrusive ads, 19% said their ads were bothering them, and there were privacy concerns because if you watch or read anything, Facebook is stealing all your data every 5 seconds, right? And then Google Plus is perceived to respect privacy more. I'm not really sure how exactly that works. There's no traditional ads.
Was the key word.
Yeah, perceived.
Yeah.
There's no traditional ads. You're not seeing this like the right-hand rail of ads like you see on Facebook. And this I thought was intriguing. Google Plus's mobile experience is better. Well, Facebook didn't really have a huge mobile strategy. They had apps, but wasn't exactly their forefront of their priorities. Overall, by the way, the whole category of social media has a 69 on its score of 100. It's one of the lowest scoring categories in terms of customer satisfaction. The only things worse are subscription television at 66, print newspaper 65, and airlines tied at 65.
Wow.
So it's not like it's making everybody super happy as the headlines are reading, like Google's doing really well. It's like, no, you're doing really well for something that people really dislike in general.
Well, for disliking social networking, we all sure spend a lot of time doing it. I mean, it's hard to compare something like Google Plus to an airline. So, yeah, I see why they're up at the top. I am a little bit curious as to why Google Plus is so far ahead of not just Facebook, but something like Twitter. Because I mean, I honestly think it's because there are just few. It's not that there are fewer people on Google Plus, because I know a lot of people are on it, but it's a little bit less of a everybody talk about everything type of a thing. Google Plus has always felt pretty structured to me because of just the people that I follow, the circles that I put them in, probably the circles that I'm in of other folks, tech circles or social circles or that sort of thing, that I kind of know what I'm going to get. And there are not a lot of curveballs at Google Plus. So I think in that sense, it can be refreshingly predictable.
That's their tagline. Google Plus, refreshingly predictable. Paul, what do you think?
Well, it's an interesting one. I wonder who or how many of the audience actually responded to this. Because if we look generally, there's not a huge audience that are using Google Plus regularly. And
people will argue that, but you're using it regularly.
For a large portion of their time, in terms of what we're seeing in the stats at the moment. So, yeah, I would be fascinated to see how this looks as Google Plus grows, because obviously they're adding new features and things to pull the audience in. I'd like to see what it looks like again another 6 or 12 months when they do it again, and when people have had a chance, or more people have had a chance to make up their mind.
Well, and Google Plus does benefit a little from being new. We tend to, on the internet anyway, to hate things more the longer we use them.
How long are we going to call Google Plus new? Because it's not new.
It's newer than all of the other things mentioned here, except for Pinterest.
Yeah, Pinterest scored 69.
But we still do this whole Google, it was in beta for a while.
When the next new one comes along,
I think
then Google Plus will be.
It'll be old when people are like, oh, you remember that story again and again? Well, that's what we have with Facebook. We have a ton of press on it because it's like, this is funny. It's the old site. It's been around for so long that the mainstream media has covered it like crazy. Pretty much everybody knows what it is, and that I think is partly why people are perceiving it to be. It's invasive because there are news stories screaming this on the news. This like if you're sitting there like the 10 o'clock news, you'll see that. How often do you see Google Plus mentioned on the 10 o'clock news or 11 o'clock news? I can't remember the last time that's happened.
Mm-hmm. Well, another score in this story that you're talking about is Wikipedia with a 78. That ties Google Plus. People very satisfied with Wikipedia, which you might be surprised about, but they got trouble. They got problems.
Yeah, Wikipedia is running out of admins.
What?
And admins are extremely important to the Wikipedia universe. I'm sure we all know pretty much how they work, but administrators, who are sometimes called sysops, can delete posts, they can block editors, they can protect pages that are sometimes in the news or are being vandalized or for whatever reason are getting hammered with page views. To become an admin, you have to be nominated, and then you have to undergo an application process, which sounds very, very rigorous. After being accepted, you, like the site's editors, all of the editors, are a volunteer. So this is something that is hard to get into, and once you're there, can be a bit of a thankless job, even though it's a pretty important one. Many people consider Wikipedia as just encyclopedia because...
Well, let's fix that right now.
There couldn't be any problems at all.
Thank you, admins.
Yes, thank you. You do a good job. Wikimania, which is a conference for the Wikimedia movement in general, was last week's annual conference over at George Washington University in D.C. And there were some charts shared around that showed kind of a troubling trend as far as admins being promoted. The admins that are promoted each month are way, way down. So, for example, back in October of 2005, Wikimedia promoted 67 people to become admins for Wikipedia. As far as 2005, 2006, that was a pretty average for a month, 50, 60 type of a thing. Since then, each month the numbers have kind of dropped off. And if you look at it in the scheme of several years, we're getting now to the point where in June 2010, for example, 6 people became admins. March of that same year in 2010, 2 people were promoted. I mean, that's down from 60-something to just 2. Now, Wikimedia says that they're planning on beta testing a new WYSIWYG text editor that's supposed to make it easier for authors to join Wikipedia. They're also saying that they're tweaking the design to make it clearer that Wikipedia is actually a place that can be edited. They say that for the most
People
part,
don't know that, really?
most people who use Wikipedia use it as a source for information,
Sure, but
not as a place to engage, right? I mean, in a way, Wikipedia is a social network. It's not perceived that way by a lot of folks. Andrew Lee, who became an administrator in 2003 and is also the author of a book called The Wikipedia Revolution, told The Atlantic that the process is kind of crazy. He says the vetting process is like putting somebody through the Supreme Court. It's almost like a hazing ritual. You apply to become an admin, and then you have to answer a lot of questions. You have to know copyright law. So Iyaz could be an editor, probably not me. You have to write essays about notability. You have to explain how you would act in hypothetical situations. Wikipedia editors can dig into your edit history. They can find discussions that you got into and grill you about why you might have said this or why you might have acted that way. So I think if you want to be an editor, I mean, you really want to be an editor. And that's probably, I don't know. When we look at these numbers, I say people are probably just busy. There might be editors who decide, I'm not going to do this anymore. And if it were a perfect world, then they would just be replaced by another and it would be fine. But there are fewer of them. And that sort of scares me as far as this free open information type thing that Wikipedia is supposed to be.
Should they be paid?
Should be paid. I guess, that would probably help. But then again, you don't want people gaming the system. I mean, the rigorous process to get on as an editor of this or an admin of this, that helps Wikipedia build its credibility, right? You have people who know what they're talking about, and they are going to check if you are just some kind of troll who likes to just destroy people's Wikipedia pages or not. And it's funny because Tom, you were just saying people don't know that you can edit it. When I went to the Wikipedia page where I used to see the edit link, it's moved. I haven't looked around for that in a long time. It's on the top menu. I guess for some reason I thought it was on the left. It's very different. I guess they could put that giant banner with Jimmy Wales and just staring at you saying, edit this if you'd like, or whatever.
We need admins.
But I think it just helps his credibility in the long term if this kind of story gets enough press and people go, hey, look, we're running out of people. Either it's incentivizing with money or just keeping the rigorous process. Just, again, you want this to be credible. I'm tired of professors just saying, okay, you can't use this at all.
Money makes things so complicated, though, because then you get people who are not doing it because they want the information to be correct. They're doing it because they want some cash. I'm not saying that they don't deserve to be paid, but it changes
the dynamics of the conversation.
Maybe need a partnership with Britannica or something to help.
Wikipedia is made of people. Spoiler. Time for the randomizer.
Randomizer.
Gizmodo has an article by Steve Wozniak about what's in his backpack. I think this is a regular feature that they have going on, but this one's getting a lot of attention because of what's in his backpack.
It must be a huge backpack. Everything's laid out on a table. It's about the size of the TWiT round table.
Wow.
You can see there's a number. There's a GPS device. There's multiple iPhones. There appears to be
two iPads.
Yeah, his iPad and Janet's iPad.
Same external drive.
A Jambox, an iPad case keyboard, a MacBook Pro. He's got 2 Nano watches. He's got 2 MiFis. It's 4G Mi. He's actually labeled this 4G MiFi and 4G MiFi spare.
Seems to be a surge protector too.
He seems to have extension cords. It looks like what could easily start a small fire.
The extension cord is good. And you know what? Instead of a surge protector, he's got those little multi adapters for the ends of the extension cords. That's more adaptable and lighter.
Mophie, 3G MiFi spare, 3G MiFi. He's got a ton of stuff. This is what would you guys carry around this much gear, or would you like to, Paul? Would you want to carry this much gear?
I actually do travel with a lot of gear, but Woz seems to travel more than just about anybody I know at the moment. He's been on the speaking circuit. He was in New Zealand and Australia in the last few weeks, and he's really got this down to a fine art. A lot of things I'm looking at things I'm familiar with, but I haven't gone to that extent. I'm probably carrying a similar number of phones and iPod Touch type devices, but yeah, he's definitely outdone me there. It's pretty impressive.
In his bag, he does show that he does not care who makes the technology. You got a Droid Razr in there, Galaxy Nexus. He actually has 2 of those. Garmin makes the GPS. He's got an Amazon Kindle. So he just, I mean, the thing is, Woz has said this a lot of times, and it gets misinterpreted all the time when he says he likes technology. They're like, hey, he likes technology. He likes Android over Apple. It's like, he just likes cool stuff, and I'm just staring at this, and wow, I wouldn't mind having a lot of this gear as well.
He's got to have some really, really heavy quads.
He should be, yeah, exactly.
I mean,
it's also his workout
good
program,
shape.
apparently. Yeah.
Sheesh.
Let's check the calendar, shall we?
Let's check. Yahoo earnings call, as we mentioned today. Marissa Mayer not expected to be part of that. But IBM's earnings is tomorrow. So it's actually a big earnings week.
Marissa Mayer not expected to be part of that either.
No.
I'm just
If
guessing.
she is, it's going to
That'd be
be
a
the
real
second big surprise.
yeah.
Pregnant with twins. No, just kidding. The 500 Startups Demo Day starts today, runs through tomorrow in the peninsula of California. And finally, AT&T is sponsoring 0-day hacking contest for the kids.
Yeah, this will be at DEF CON. They have DEF CON Kids going on this year, so that's pretty cool.
They did last year as well.
Yeah, I like that.
That's awesome.
What's incoming?
Incoming message.
Oh, thanks. This one comes from Keenan. He says, hi, I had to write just to brag a little about my ISP. Okay, Keenan. I live in Grant County, Washington. It's one of the few counties that used the federal money given to improve internet access to actually improve internet access.
Astonishing.
Thus, I have fiber, which gives me on average 50 megabits per second both ways. I regularly get 80 megabit per second down with no caps. It's not odd for me to see 7 or 8 megabits per second downloading Twitch shows using Gpotter. Okay, fine. You get to brag.
He actually says 7 or 8 megabytes. He goes, that's bytes, not bits.
Oh,
So
sorry, 7 or 8 megabytes. Yes,
crazy fast. That's like local storage. I'm jealous of you, Keenan.
like
Wow.
you can download i5 when your i5 show comes
Yes,
out, you
that
can
would be Monday.
Pretty much download the whole show in a second. That's ridiculous.
Good. Hope
Please
you
do that, yeah.
Keenan. Next email from Stefan says, hi guys, I just wanted to make a comment on your discussion of the B-Sky-B Now TV IPTV offering in the UK. I think you gave it a little bit more credit than it deserved. At my house in Japan, I live in Kyoto, the only way to get cable in our area is via internet. They only have IPTV. You can get a complete package with dozens of channels, unlimited movie passes, and the like for around $35 per month, most in 1080p HD. This aside, there's a side effect of IPTV. Consider the case in Japan. They're retired elderly with what they consider pay TV, streaming HDTV to set-top boxes that can record a few stations at a time. That's a lot of internet bandwidth consumed by those who probably don't even really use the internet. The consequence is that FTTH internet connection in Japan is around $75 per month for 100 megabits, more for 1 gigabit. Interestingly, the internet is billed to 2 companies, the fiber company NTT, $60 per month, and the ISP, $15 per month. This high-speed network is extremely expensive. The internet is dirt cheap.
Huh, but, that's cool. I mean, I probably should have guessed that there were other systems out there we hadn't heard of doing this, but I still give B-Sky-B credit for doing it in an arena which we didn't expect it to happen in. And not that we should accept what's going on in Japan, but they do tend to be a little more forward on some of these things anyway. Anything like this going on in New Zealand or Australia?
Well, we've got the rollout in New Zealand and in Australia of fibre to the home and to businesses. Actually, those rates that were mentioned there for internet didn't seem too astronomical to me. I guess what we're looking for is Netflix and those sort of players to come into the New Zealand market, so we don't need to jump through a lot of hoops to do it. So, at the moment, I have to rely on a VPN to the US to access and pay for content.
Yeah,
because there's so
not the
little
best
available.
streaming performance when you're going through proxies and VPNs and stuff. Yeah.
No, and the distance is really the big issue. That's what constrains the bandwidth. So you might have a 100 megabit connection, but that latency completely constrains the speed at which you can stream and download at.
Yeah.
We got a couple emails about the Windows System Builder System Builder versus the retail copy, because Microsoft is no longer, or the rumor is Microsoft will no longer offer a full retail box version of Windows 8. This one's from Don. He says the OEM version and presumably the Windows 8 System Builder version is locked to the first hardware you install it on. Retail copy, on the other hand, can be installed on new hardware. This is a feature he's going to miss. So we don't know if Microsoft is actually going to lock it down to one just yet, because Microsoft still hasn't officially said anything. This was a report from, I believe, Windows Weekly, telling us that Microsoft is not doing box software. So we'll have to see what happens there.
Yeah, Windows Weekly coming up this Thursday. Maybe they'll have more on that. We'll definitely be talking about Microsoft Office. Want to thank everybody for submitting stories in our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. If you want to let us know what stuff you'd like us to cover on the show, it's a great place to either submit links or just vote on the links that have been submitted. Appreciate all of the hard work that goes into maintaining that and all the people who get in there and vote. It helps us make our lineups each and every day. Paul, thank you again for coming in. Great to have you in the studio, man.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Let folks know about the New Zealand Tech Podcast.
So you can find us online at nztechpodcast.com, and you can also find me on Twitter, just at Paul Spain.
Yep. All right. Check it out. And that's NZ if you're American, and Z. Why isn't it New Zealand?
I don't know.
That's a question for another day. Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening. You can find us on the web, twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, TNT@twit.tv. Give us a call. Leave us a voicemail, 260-TNT-SHOW. Lindsay Turrentine from CNET will join us tomorrow. We'll see you then.